As a man who happens to be black, the last week or so has been pretty difficult. My heart has been broken for a while as a result of all the tragedies that have been happening around the world and here in America. And so one way that I process my sadness and the hurt is to write. And so I put together this piece for my own healing and also in hopes of helping America heal. So I want to share this piece that I wrote, and it's called Healing the Racial Heart of America. The past few days have been extremely difficult for me, as I'm sure it has been for most people. My heart is filled with sadness, and I've been withholding tears because I did not want to feel the pain. But today, I allow myself to feel into the sadness, the hurt, and the frustration, and I'm allowing myself to heal from the hurt. But rest assured, it still hurts. The pain runs deep, but I will heal. My heart was broken as I watched the videos of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling have their lives senselessly taken in yet another incident of unnecessary violence. My heart ached as I thought about the trauma Philando's young daughter and fiancé experienced as they witnessed their loved one lose his life right in front of their eyes. I cannot get the picture of his bloodied body out of my mind. It symbolizes the dehumanization of men of color and the powerlessness we sometimes feel simply because of the color of our skin. And it hurts. It really hurts. I'm also deeply saddened that the recent events opens the wounds of racism once again in this country and perpetuates the illusion that it is us versus them, which causes a sense of separation and division in our country. But as painful as it feels right now, I remain hopeful that these events can actually become a catalyst that brings us closer together instead of tearing us apart as a nation. And in some ways that we may not understand, these events are actually necessary to wake this country up. I've cried because of the emotional and psychological impact these events will have on young black male minds and hearts. Though everyone can feel the hurt and pain of these types of events, too many black males will conclude that their lives don't matter and will simply give up and stop trying. Or worse, they will act out in ways that support the negative media-generated stereotypes. Which is another thing that brought me pain. The people who say all lives matter show no compassion or empathy for the challenges facing people of color this way. How can they not see that Black Lives Matter in no way implies that other lives do not matter? It states the obvious truth that Black lives have always been devalued in this country, and we've been labeled as inferior since we were brought here. We aren't attempting to be treated as superior, but simply as equals, because our lives do matter, and we're valuable assets to this country, not liabilities. After these two horrific events, my heart once again was cracked wide open with pain, as several law officers' lives were unnecessarily taken in retaliation for the killings. The pain comes from knowing that the overwhelming majority of police officers are actually good cops and should not have to live in fear that their lives will be taken in retaliation of the actions of a few bad ones. Most of them are committed to protect and serve, but at the same time, I believe it's time for them to address the real problems within their organization. The good cops must not be afraid to call out the bad ones. They must be willing to protect and save us from their own, and sometimes that will mean that they break the code of brotherhood within the force to remove the ones who do not deserve to wear the badge. In no way can I ever justify violence. Violence begets violence, and I personally cannot and will not condone it in any form. But I must admit that I also felt a sense of sadness and compassion for Michael Johnson. I definitely did not feel this way because he took the lives of others, but because I can empathize with his pain and anger. It's easy to label a person a monster when they commit these horrendous crimes, but if we truly want to rid ourselves of violence, we must begin asking ourselves some deeper questions about what causes it in the first place. I do not want to excuse him or try and justify his actions, and in no way pretend that he is the victim here, because he isn't. Every human being should be held 100% accountable for their actions. But I believe he unfortunately symbolizes how too many black men feel most of the time, and that is angry and powerless. Violent acts, in my opinion, are never justifiable, but without question, feeling angry is. A lot of black men are angry, and when their anger isn't acknowledged, it simply creates more anger. Feeling anger does not mean we hate white people or this country. It means we have been invalidated and abused, and it is our way of defending ourselves from that abuse. As I write these words with tears rolling down my face, I recognize that my heart is healing. Sharing these words have helped me process my feelings, and I can feel my sadness lifting. I can feel my sense of optimism returning, and I'm convinced that the best days for this country are ahead of us and not behind us. If I can heal my hurt, so too can America. President Obama was quoted as saying, "As painful as the week has been, I fully believe that America is not as divided as people have suggested." I concur with his statement. I do not believe that race relations are getting worse. I believe technology now captures the injustices we've been talking about and experiencing for a very long time. So I am hopeful that the events of the last few days can wake us up and help us start healing the heart of America. It begins with remembering the creed, together we stand, divided we fall. It begins with healing our own hearts, and if you are white and struggling with what to do about the recent tragedies, consider these two ideas. Open your heart and have compassion. If you aren't black, you may not be able to empathize with the feelings we have, but you can have compassion for our feelings. Know that we are justified in our anger and fear, and do not invalidate our experience. Black Lives Matter was never intended to say other lives didn't. Its intention was to validate our experience of the violence we receive from police and society as a whole. Just try for a moment to walk in our shoes and know that it is a very difficult walk at times. And number two, be honest with your feelings about black people in general. Have you accepted the negative media-generated stereotypes about black people? Are you justifying these killings by saying he was resisting arrest and thereby denying that this is even a problem? Be willing to examine your own hidden judgments and biases about black people, and be willing to accept that those judgments might be wrong. Be willing to change your perception about black people, and do not be afraid to speak up to people of your ethnicity who may think differently than you do if you're saying things like Black Lives Matter or recognize the unnecessary violence perpetuated by cops. And if you're black, I'd like to offer a few ideas to consider. First of all, know that you are justified in your feelings of anger, sadness, fear, or rage. Do not deny how you feel and never let anyone invalidate your feelings. However, you cannot justify violence or hate. Don't buy into hate. Find a support system that helps you deal with your emotions and provides a safe place for you to express them. Give yourself permission to grieve and heal if that's what you need to do. Healing comes from expressing your feelings with others and allowing whatever emotion you may have to be released. Let go of all negative or painful emotions. Secondly, do not accept the media-generated idea that it is us against them. Although I do believe some violent acts are racially motivated, I do not believe the majority of white people are racist. I do not believe that our collective society is racist and that white people are attempting to eliminate black people. Without question, the system is definitely broken and biased, but we cannot continue to promote this idea that it is us against them. There are people of all races working to find solutions to the racial challenges we have in this country, and it's going to take all of us to resolve them. As long as you believe it is us against them, things will never change. We must work together to heal the heart of America and the world. Last but definitely not least, know that there are reasons for optimism and choose to become an optimist. I recognize that there are lots of challenges facing us, and on the surface, it might appear that our challenges are insurmountable. However, I believe there are lots of reasons for optimism, and I believe that the future is brighter than most people think. One way to become an optimist is to simply disconnect from the media. You must recognize that the media's job is to showcase everything that is wrong with the world. It thrives on negativity and pessimism. Don't buy into the negative media. I can assure you that there are a lot more things that are right with the world than are wrong with it. So look for the things that are right. Focus your attention on solutions rather than problems, and follow Gandhi's advice and become the change you want to see in the world. As mentioned, I'm still optimistic about the future. There's always darkness before the dawn, and the light of truth always overcomes darkness. So I will leave you with the beautiful and insightful words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So let's love a lot more.